All right. So as you are putting your brand out there, one of the things to keep in mind is how people perceive your brand, and it's not just um, the what you think it is what they think it is. And so to have an interesting conversation about branding and ways to increase your sales, which is the topic that everyone likes to talk about. So we'll head on it from that angle. So excited to have Lauren Gonzalez here from Principium Studio to talk more about that. So Lauren, thanks for coming on Maximizing E-commerce.
Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to share what I've learned with working with so many clients in the e-commerce Amazon space and actually help your followers and listeners.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. So, well, let's get into it. So, tell me a little bit about how you got into this world of art and design and all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So I have been an artist all my life. I have always been drawing or painting, always had a sketchbook with me. And I actually originally wanted to work for Pixar and
Oh,
be,
okay.
yeah. So I actually went to Cal Arts to be an animator. And
Isn't that the school that like Walt Disney founded?
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's in Valencia near Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And I went there. I was really enjoying it. And then I realized though that I kind of wanted to do a pivot to more illustration design type of work. So I had some things happening with my mom at the time. She was going through cancer.
Oh,
And
I'm
so
sorry to
I
hear that.
wanted to, yeah, thank you. She actually totally recovered.
Oh,
She's
good.
doing great now. So, but I didn't want to go to Pixar, which was five hours away. So I changed the focus to being more design illustration, and I went
Okay.
to Art Center. So then I went to Art Center, which is in Pasadena, and also in the LA area. And yeah, I just really fell in love with design itself, and really how that could actually help companies, and how it was really everywhere. Like you couldn't find something that really didn't have design in it. So then I started to do some internships locally. I started to work for different corporations. I worked in house as a creative director, and I then got pregnant and
Oh,
decided it was time to go out on my own and try it. And so I actually, while I was working in house, I worked on many different e commerce projects. I worked on websites. I did a lot of print design, package design, and really got familiar with that whole online community. It was back in 2010. So things were starting to really get big in the e-commerce world. And really, really started to understand that whole community a lot. So then once I made it, went on my own, I decided that the e-commerce space, the Amazon sellers, I started getting some clients in that space, and I realized what an amazing opportunity that was for each of these, working from home people, or people who wanted to just go out and be the entrepreneur on their own. And I loved the idea and that the excitement that each of these sellers had, as
mhm.
opposed to the corporate bureaucracy and working with, that whole level. I loved working with the individual sellers. So I created a whole brand, actually partnered with my husband, who is a
Okay.
photographer. Yeah. And we created Principium Studio, which is basically means origin in Latin. So we like to say that it's laying the foundation, it's the origin of your brand.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't quite realize that. And I did take Latin for 2 years in high school, which
Oh,
I don't
cool.
think I've mentioned on the podcast ever before. I think I've talked more about my Spanglish skills from taking it for 4 years prior to that.
That's too funny.
But anyone ever asked me if I speak Spanish, I'm always like poquito. And most of what I do able to speak fluently would be um, probably not appropriate just because I learned it from working in like kitchens and stuff like that.
Oh,
Grew
that's
up in
so funny.
Texas. So anyway,
Oh my gosh.
um, random side note. So us get back into this. One thing though, I do want to hit on that before we hit the record button, you were talking a little bit about how you had done some work for Disney, and
Yes.
that caught my ear because I used to work for the company who centers around mouse ears. So tell me a little bit about what you did for Disney.
Sure, absolutely. So that actually happened after I was really in the corporate space. I was working mainly with books and publishing. So then when I went out on my own, and I really felt the creative freedom to, okay, so let's see where I can actually, work. And a goal of mine had always been to work with Disney.
Right.
I just didn't know really how I could merge design, because it was always in the animation type space that I thought was really where I could go.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I had a connection who knew somebody in the consumer packaged goods at Disney and
Mm-hmm.
in Burbank. And so I landed a project with them, actually two projects. One of them was a whole kit for teenagers for makeup. So, and that was Frozen. So that was back
Okay.
right around when Frozen 2 had come out. And
Oh,
there were,
okay.
yeah. So there was, I'm just thinking Frozen, the timing on that. Yeah, it was in between Frozen. Frozen was huge at that point. I think it was in between
It's
Frozen 1
pretty
and
much
Frozen
been
2.
huge. Having a 10-year-old daughter, it's been huge since
Oh,
the first one came out. What was that, 13 or 14?
yeah, that was right. Exactly. I think that was the end of 2013. And so,
Okay.
and yeah, so that got really big. And and I got to actually do a whole makeup kit with them, and it was super fun. I mean, it was like a dream walking into this, this place that I dreamt of. I've driven by my whole life with the there's a headquarters where the animation studio is, right off of the freeway, and
Okay.
there's the seven dwarfs holding up the building.
Yes, 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 yes. They're kind of make up the pillars there in the I've not been to that building, but I've seen pictures of it many times.
Yeah. So that is actually the animation headquarters,
Oh, okay.
and but then if down the street, like a bit further, that's where the whole headquarters is for all of the websites, their consumer packaged goods, where they create all of the amazing products and the books and everything. It's a massive campus, and it was such a thrill to be able to go there a bunch of times and work with the team there. And so yeah, that was kind of at the beginning of my freelancing,
Hmm.
when I was starting, and I was really trying to figure out where did I want to work, and who did I want to work with. So it was that, while it was super fun, it really it's quite time consuming working with a big corporation, and there's a
Oh, yeah.
lot of yeah, there's a lot of bureaucracy to go through and everything, which obviously was great, and I felt like I could check off that box. So I got to actually work with Disney and created a product for them. And I also did a side project with them, which was creating Vidal Sassoon shampoo and conditioner with princesses on them. So that was super fun too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that's amazing because the thing of it is, having worked there, I know they don't just let anyone touch their brand.
Mm.
So the fact that they gave you that, and this went into stores.
Yeah. So the Vidal Sassoon was kind of like a testing project. They were just starting a
Hmm.
collaboration with them.
Okay.
But the actual team kit that went into stores, that was in the Disney store. I had
Oh,
one
wow.
in the local mall. They're all over the
Uh-huh.
place. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that was super exciting to see that there, and that I got to contribute to it.
Okay, cool, 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 cool. But I understand exactly what you mean by the bureaucracy. And if any of my former fellow cast members, as we used to call ourselves at
Right.
Disney,
Yeah.
are listening, I have nothing but the most utmost respect for Disney. But large companies like that can sometimes be very hard to work for. So um, maybe not
Yeah.
say hard to work for, but hard to get decisions made. And so if you want to say, okay, here's what I think we should do, I know what you mean about the bureaucracy, getting things done. So I could see why the more entrepreneurial world could be more attractive, because you're talking to the decision maker, not the
Yeah.
decision maker has to go to their boss, who has to go to their boss, who has to go to their boss. Literally, that's what happens in a big company. And no one's really sure who actually makes the decision, even
Right.
within the company.
Yeah, that's true. I experienced that many times when I was working in house. So I absolutely, and it's obviously the magic, it's the fun in
Hmm.
the whole Disney. But yeah, starting something from scratch with the entrepreneurs, with the Amazon sellers, where they have their vision, they have their passions, their goals, why they want to start it. That is what thrills me, and what I love to help others to actually create, is what they have been wanting to or thinking about for years, and now they're finally doing it. So
Okay, good
yeah.
deal. And I know that we had talked a little bit about how you help people both, if they're starting out or if they, are kind of rebranding or looking for ways to optimize and things of that nature. So I want to focus more on the, how to optimize and how to grow what you already have.
Yeah.
So if someone was to come to you and say, hey, here's my brand, what are some of the things you would look at and say, okay, this might be like, if whether they wanted to do a rebrand or a refresh or whatever the case was, what are some things you would start looking at first to help them get the best results?
Yeah, great question. So, what I love to look at is, okay, so they have between their actual logo, their brand name, the colors that they use, their packaging, their if they have a website, even if it's just for credibility, if they have a social media, if they have and what their listing looks like, their infographics, does it have a cohesive look? Could I look at it and say, okay, that brand actually, they know what they're doing, they're professional, they're putting out content that actually will resonate with their ideal customer. So that's really shown in, I'll give you an example just as a side note, like if you have a baby brand and let's say that the baby brand is using blacks and dark reds and maybe and maybe some lime green and it's just it's not speaking at the level of who's going to be buying those products,
Mm,
which is most likely going to be the moms, right? The moms who are in that soft and cuddly, I have a new baby
hmm
feel. That's where the pastel colors, the
mm.
branding, it really speaks to that person. So that's the first thing that I always look at when I'm doing a brand audit, really analyzing what it looks like.
Okay, so you're looking for a cohesive look, and does the color palette, so to speak, match what it is? So, I see what you mean, like, kind of like warmer, uh, welcoming colors that, a mom might like, because, you're not really marketing it for the baby, you're marketing it for the mom. You're not
Exactly.
even marketing it for the dad. It's just
No,
saying.
not most times not. Yeah. Maybe the
Yes.
grandma, maybe.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It tends to be the more maternal side of it. Um, and
Yeah.
I always just having two kids, just kind of went along with the ride. "Oh, okay, whatever you say with the nursery colors
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and then try to support it, and maybe buy stuff. But I was like, okay, what did Michelle buy? Um,
Right.
it's kind of the way I generally went. But I could see in other things if you're trying to use that for something that's maybe a little bit more festive of a brand, or something that's uh, products that might have different users, or at least the mindset of the user. It could still be the mom, but she's buying it for a different reason. You might use
Mhm.
a different color palette, right?
Exactly, exactly. So that's like a kitchen brand. So if the mom's
Mm.
a cook.
Hmm.
A lot of times, kitchen brands have red. That's a very interesting color. That's
Oh
also,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and maybe it can't. It would be different because yes, she's looking for a different reason. That's that specific brand solves a different problem than a baby brand, and
Mm.
and that's something that and the reason that you do and really understand the actual that you have to have this cohesive look is because people are going to start to recognize you, and it takes a certain amount of touch points sometimes for people to actually start to buy. So if somebody, let's say, sees you on a Facebook ad and then they see you again maybe on Pinterest and then they see you on Amazon, if you're using different colors and different fonts and actually different, your brand is not looking cohesive on all those,
Hmm.
they're not going to recognize that, oh, that's the same person, oh wow, maybe I should buy from it at this point. and
Hmm.
and and plus then the loyalty. So let's say that brand comes out with a new product and it's easily recognizable. Oh yeah, that's Nike. I really want to get their new shoe. And so that's another reason that having that cohesiveness is super vital to really having a professional brand.
Okay, gotcha. And some people might be listening and saying, but like really, what I care about are sales and conversions
Yeah.
and keywords and all this. So everything you're talking about, like, yeah, that's great, but that's for Nike. I'm not here for branding. I'm here for profit. So
Right.
help people understand at least what you're talking about, maybe in more terms of the profit. I get where you're coming from, but I know some people might be listening, or maybe they're kind of on the fence about what you're talking about, and they're curious why they should even have a philosophy about branding at all.
Absolutely. Okay, so This doesn't just start with the packaging. It's not just the pretty colors or anything. So it translates directly into your listing. And the
Mhm.
listing, when we've taken, I just did actually a recent a brand a listing audit on somebody, went through it, and every single slide was different. They had 5 different fonts. It was like yellow here, red here, black here. The fonts were really super tiny. There wasn't any, you look through it and think you're looking at a different listing between
Mm.
each of the ones. And when
Each of the main images?
each of the main images, yeah,
Okay.
on in the actual listing. So and when I've done this, when I've taken on these brands where it's just all over the place, we have actually taken them on, made sure they had the proper branding in place, and then actually gone through and made 1 to 2 main communications per infographic, so that
Okay.
it's not like you have tons and tons and tons of benefits. You don't have tons and tons and tons listed that you can barely even read it, because actually now over half of Amazon sales, I was just looking at statistics, are on a mobile app. And so that
Yeah,
makes it
and
even,
phones seem to be getting smaller these days, so
yeah, yeah, they got really big. Now they're getting smaller.
right, so that's something to
So
keep. Good point.
yeah. So now I always look and see, oh my gosh, can I actually see what this is? And the way this ties into the branding side of it as well is that keeping it really clean and consistent helps. It's much easier on the viewer. They're able to see it, they're able to read it, and we've seen an increase between 30 to 50% in actual conversions and sales when these are implemented, when these points are implemented, when the brand is actually made cohesive, when the infographics are given an overhaul and really made to speak to the pain points of the consumer, and list only 1 to 2 benefits, and make sure that they're super clear for mobile. So it's not just desktop. That's
Mm.
where, and the thing is, when what happens is we get a lot of people who are looking for rebrands, or they're coming to up their actual listing images,
Mhm.
and they had a Fiverr designer or somebody work on it, that and nothing wrong with those companies, but the problem is that maybe they don't actually understand Amazon, and they're
Mhm.
designing on a desktop. So they think, okay, so this
Mm.
is this is going to work for mobile, or they're not even thinking with mobile, and it's a big mistake, and that's a big way that you're missing out on sales with that. So
Well, that's such a good point, because if you
yeah,
optimize for mobile, it will work on desktop. If you optimize for desktop, it won't it may or may not work on mobile. So that's such a good point. If you try to force too much stuff in there, and people are so easily distracted, it's like you kind of just got to give them one thing at a time. So I can see how that might work in the images. So let's just backtrack a little bit to, you said, increases of 30 to 50%. So just, I'll use these numbers just because the math is easy for me.
sure.
So like if you had a 30 to 50% increase in conversions, if your conversion rate was 10%, you'd looking at 13 or 15% ish, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. What I actually meant by that is that it's gone from, we had one recently go from 10% to 40%. So the
Oh, wow.
conversions themselves, yeah, the conversions themselves actually went to 40%. I had one that went to 52%. I mean, obviously these things change, but that was an average of what it was over a specific period of time once they implemented the new infographics.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, and is this, now that's those are some pretty incredible numbers.
Yeah.
Like I got to drill down on, like, what, walk me through a little bit more of that. So like, is
Yeah.
that like the whole listing, or is that like certain campaigns, or is that just during the span of a week and then looking at the next week or something like that?
Okay. So normally what we like to have a big time period. So that's like a month of really looking, and that's
Hmm.
the average. And it's not based on any one specific ad campaign. It's based on the overall listing. And the difference is, like, let's say somebody comes to us and they have infographics with really tiny type that people can't read
Hmm.
it, and it's only about, like, this is 1 inch tall or this is 5 inches wide. But it's the thing that we actually do is do a full review of the actual competitors, the reviews of the competitors, the reviews of your listing, if you already have one, and seeing what do people say? What are they saying that they love about it? Not the benefits, not it's the right, it fit me because it was this many inches, but actually what is the thing that really connects with them about this product? What problem does it solve?
Hmm.
Because when you start speaking to that, it gets people that they say, oh, this can solve my problem. People don't buy things really. I mean, there's obviously entertainment, but there's other things, toys, but it's always to solve some sort of problem. So if, let's say, as an example, there is a baby brand, this is one of the ones that we really majorly increased our conversions with, which was a baby brand that needed to have some sanitary aspect, like a changing pad, so that they would lie down. So you're not talking about, okay, so it's this wide and it's this tall, and yeah, maybe you can add that in there as one of the infographics. But you're talking about, it's going to keep your baby safe. It's going to make it so that they don't get the germs. It's going to actually make it so that they're not wiggling around when you're trying to change their diapers. So those are the kind of things you want to talk about. And that's where going in and really understanding your client, your ideal customer, really looking at those reviews, seeing and pulling those out, and finding the points they don't like and they do like. And if your product does solve that problem, you don't want to say something that's not true, but if it does solve the problem, and then
Right.
you put it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cause I look at it as, if you start getting into 40-50% conversion rates, you have a new problem to solve. And it's a good problem to solve,
Mm-hmm.
in that you're probably not charging enough,
Yeah.
or you aren't being as aggressive in who you're targeting. Because I think it's impressive, even let's just say, going back to my original thought of 30 to 50%. So if you went from like 10% to 13%, or you went to 20% to 30% conversion rate, something like that, that's really good. And I would still even start saying, okay, maybe you can look at some other things. Because if you end up with like a 40-50% conversion rate, like, I almost look at that as like, okay, that's a new problem to solve, because you're probably leaving money on the table, because maybe the product is being perceived too commoditized. Because at the end of the day, when you start doing the math, and I'm probably starting to go down a rabbit hole here, so just bear with me,
Okay.
that if you have to look at it as like in total number of sales that you're getting for the people that show up. Like, what is like, for every time someone, looks at your listing, what is your average revenue? And so you almost want to increase that by maybe potentially increasing your price, or getting more people onto the listing. Um, because that's incredible, having something like a 40-50%, but I almost think it's like, there's a new problem, because you want more total sales. And
Right.
so whatever you're doing must be working. So let's dive into that a little bit more. So you talked about, with the infographics, making it more, um, what's the word I'm looking for? More specific, more fluid, more benefit driven, of course, being truthful, but, making it in plain sight.
Yeah.
What would be some suggestions you might have for what people actually say on it when they're trying to decide, like, what are the words on it?
Okay, so it really varies dramatically between different niches.
Sure.
Um, so, like, let's say you're going through reviews
Mm.
where you have maybe some. It's good to look at all different levels. Like, look at the 2-star reviews, look at the 3-star reviews, because those people are probably, when you look at the 1 and 2-star, sometimes people write those out of anger, and
Right. Or
they're,
they're just angry in general in life.
yes, they just hate everyone, and they want to take it
Hmm.
out on your listing, and they have no idea how it's going to affect your own sales, which
And they don't care because they're and never mind. I'm sorry. I sound bitter myself now.
no, I think every seller has run into these, and yes. So but it's good to look really at the 3, 4, and 5 stars,
Mm.
because those, particularly the 3 and 4, because I feel like those are going to really be the most truthful,
Okay.
and
That's a good way to
and
look at it.
Yeah, and really see, okay, so what are they saying that they don't like? What are they saying they do like? And take out, like, look at a bunch of them. I mean, you could go through like 50, and that, I know that's, well, I mean, it really doesn't take that long because they're all there. But if you go through like 50, maybe 10 per listing of different competitors, and
Hmm.
look for just some similar words that customers are
Mm,
using. Like, is it that it's comfortable, or is it that it's helpful? Is it that it's more easy to use? Like, these are kind of
mm,
the words
mhm,
that I find that people do that really show it's solving some problem. Maybe before they had a product that was hard to use, or it was hard on their hand, or it wasn't comfortable.
mhm.
So how does your product make it comfortable? What does it do to solve that? And give, and obviously this gets into kind of a bit more copywriting,
Sure.
and we don't do full listing copy. We really just keep it brief and just really give back the customers what they like about it, and say, if you get this, you're going to actually get this solution.
Okay.
So does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense there. So, okay. Well, so we've talked a lot about the infographics and stuff like that. So I do want to talk a little bit more about things like A plus content and some of the other things that people probably should work on. So,
Yeah.
where would be kind of the next spot other than like images, like those
Oh,
main images? I know main image is really just the top one, but like the first set of images, so to speak.
yeah, no, absolutely. So then it's great that when you're brand registered, you get to have the A plus content. So
Hmm.
so going down, and really a mistake I see a lot is that those images, again, they're designed for desktop, not mobile. And so much information gets packed into these little tiny spaces. And the good
Right.
thing is that the A plus content also allows you to have text space. So that's a
Hmm.
great benefit, because then people can read that. And I think that that should expanding. I think that there's a specific rule Amazon has about, they don't like to repeat images.
Hmm.
Getting really more into like frequently asked questions that your consumers maybe ask, or different, where you can expand on, where in one image you could only talk about how it was easy to use. Well, why is it easy to use? Expanding into that,
Mm.
and really showing it in use. And Amazon allows 5 modules. Basically, modules are the different pieces of
Hmm.
content. I'm sure you know that. And then
Right.
and then they allow the top logo. So I always like to maximize the headlines and the type above and below, if in the modules, because for everyone, most of them, they allow extra type. So putting that jam full of just really expanding on the different pain points, going into more details, showing it visually as much as you can with limited type on those images, as limited as possible, because it's just not going to show up on mobile
Okay.
otherwise. Yeah,
Now, are you a minimalist in real life?
I think so. Yes. I
Okay.
mean, I don't like a lot of kludge or anything like that. So yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. So I'm hearing kind of a theme of minimalist, but that makes sense. That sometimes if it's too much, it's distracting and things of that nature. And one of my mentors in this world had told me multiple times is that if you have too many calls to action, people
Mhm.
just do nothing. So you may think like, oh, this, check out this, and this, and it's like they just they get confused, and confused people do nothing. So less
Yeah.
is generally more. So that's a good point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And having it so that when you're looking through these images, it's not like makes you go all over the place. Like there's type all over, and it just
Right. It's
just
like
your
what
attention goes exactly, like exactly.
TLDR.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't like to do that. Consumers, it's not going to benefit anyone just because you didn't get to mention all those different benefits. If it really doesn't matter if you're not speaking to the real problems that you're solving, and really explaining what benefit is this person going to get by getting your product. That's the whole, you have to really, that's why setting up your brand to really understand your consumer,
Mhm.
not just all the technical details about the keywords and all the different elements that go with obviously creating an Amazon listing, which are all super important and they all have their place. But when you really understand them yourself,
Mhm.
that makes all the difference and shows through in the listings.
Okay. Interesting. And another thing I think we had talked about before we hit the record button was storefronts. And to be
Yeah.
honest, I'm terrible. I'm no expert on storefronts. Haven't done a good job with it. Um, Help me understand what's the value of the storefront and how do you generate sales off of them?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I also this was storefronts came into my plate a little bit later
Mhm.
because I also was like, oh, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But I started we started working with more clients and we were building the storefronts and there is you can actually look at the statistics of what sales actually come from storefronts. And I
Mm.
was surprised to see that there's actually on a daily basis one of the brands we work with, they get sales because they have a storefront. And I it's not, it's not more than they're getting on their listings, but they still that's a whole other place to actually get sales.
Huh.
And the reason is that, just like I said earlier, is brand loyalty. So when somebody, if you're in a niche that's a kitchen space, let's say, and
Okay.
they loved one of your products, so they might go back to your listing and maybe they need to buy a new one. But if they click on that little the little clickable link that says um, brand name storefront, or check
Mhm.
out their store, and they go there and they see all of your other products in one space, and that actually is a huge boost of credibility, and as well as it gives them the opportunity to buy more from you. So it's like a mini website that Amazon has provided, which I think is super cool and should absolutely be used.
Okay. So is that the primary driver of traffic? And this might be a very basic question and people might be laughing that why is he even asking this? But like, is that the primary driver to get people to the storefront is just when people click the link on the listing?
Well, they can find it if you can advertise this, you can put this anywhere. I mean, you could put it on your social media, you could put it on your website, you could put it any other places.
Hmm.
And the main place I've seen, others could have another viewpoint, others could see something different. The main way I've seen it is by clicking on that little clickable link. Um, but if you search, like, let's say you
Hmm.
loved a specific brand and you searched in Amazon for it, the storefront would come up and would allow you to then click it, and then you could see all the products.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, and just one more thing I want to say is that they actually allow you to add images and just connect with the brand more. It's just another opportunity for you to connect with them, show them that you're serious about your business in terms of it being professional, having a nice banner. There's just a lot. It's a next level of, oh, cool. I this brand even has more. So
Yeah. And that's a
yeah.
good point. And what's interesting is in the episode right before this previous week's episode, we had a gentleman named John Ross on, and he is a multiple seven-figure seller, and he had done some consulting work with me, and I got to see a little bit of behind the curtain, so to speak. And he had really nice storefronts, and I think that was also a driver to him as well. And so he's doing well at that. So maybe this is advice I should pay more attention to.
Yeah, I think mine as well. If it's there to, Amazon has it there for you to use. I think it's a great take advantage of it.
Right, exactly, exactly. All right. So, what other closing advice would you have for someone who's looking to increase their conversion rates?
I think it's really just about making sure that you aren't just putting things there just to get a listing up, that you really take the time to put some care into realizing there's another person on the other side.
Mm,
It kind of gets really when you have an online business and you're not interacting with consumers, you're not interacting with people in that way, and actually being in an actual brick and mortar store, it's kind of hard to forget that, oh yeah, there's somebody else on the other end there that's a real
mhm.
person. They have real problems. There's and really humanizing your brand, really putting in that extra human element that connects with them, instead of just putting up something and then not actually making it so that it's thought through and it's really researched well. And I'm sure a lot of brands you put out there, you do the research, you do your keyword research, you put together awesome type and
Mhm.
those different features, but I think it doesn't always get translated into the images, or those are kind of just brushed off and given to somebody else to do who doesn't really know what their consumer is about. And if you don't know who your consumer is, then that person's certainly not going to either.
Very good point. Very good point. And that's such a good point about, we get so caught up in the data oftentimes that it's, we think of impressions and we think of, sessions and all these things and conversions, but all of those actions are a human being. Like there's someone in front of a computer or a tablet or a phone, as you said before, more and more on phone,
Yeah.
who's looking for something that's going to solve their problem, and is what you're conveying helping them understand that this will take them more from problem that they have to problem being solved. And if you can tip the scales in more in that direction of solving the problem, and it's communicated to them, the more likely they are to either pull out their wallet, or at least if they have it on file, to add to cart and pay for it.
Right, exactly. You got it.
Awesome. Well, if somebody wanted to learn more or see some of your work, where would they go?
Yeah, so our website is principiumstudio.com. That's Principium
Mhm.
studio.com. So just like Prince and then Ipium Studio.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. If someone's having challenges with the spelling, they can always also go to maximizingecommerce.com/91, and we'll have a link in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be down below in the description. So depending on where you're watching this, you can get that. So awesome. Well, great advice here, Lauren. You've got my mind thinking about a lot of this stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm super happy to help. I think that every seller can actually, make it if they really take that time and put in the effort on it. And I'm excited to see Amazon continue to grow and boom. And it's amazing now. I mean, especially with everything going on in last year, and
Right.
continuing to go on, and so many more consumers going to Amazon to get what they need. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Just the best thing we can do is just keep trying to improve and, you know, relate better to our customers.
absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lauren.
Thank you so much, Kevin.